ChatGerry, a full scientific analysis of my Pontine hemorrhagic stroke, number 1445, November 22, 2025. Gerald C. EclaireMD Foundation. Category: Stroke and Metabolic Pathophysiology. Preface. On June 21, 2025, I suffered a hemorrhagic stroke in the pons area near my brainstem. My systolic blood pressure suddenly spiked to 175 mmHg, and that single surge ruptured a tiny cerebral vessel that had been silently damaged for decades. When I later reviewed my CT images, I saw many bright white spots. Those were calcifications formed over 36 years of diabetes. Surviving this type of stroke is rare. Many studies show a mortality rate between 50% and 80%. My survival pushed me to look back across 4 decades of my own health history to understand why this happened and, more importantly, how others can avoid it. How the first life chapter damaged my vessels. From 1990 to 2009. From 1981 to 2002, I lived an extremely stressful life as an entrepreneur, and later as a Silicon Valley CEO. I traveled constantly, worked long hours, dealt with lawsuits, corporate pressure, and no rest. My BMI climbed to 32, and I relied entirely on medications to manage my type 2 diabetes. There was no meaningful lifestyle control for 20 years. From 1994 to 2004, I suffered 5 heart attacks. Yet I kept pushing myself until 2002, when I finally sold my company and left Silicon Valley. But the damage had already accumulated. Those 20 years created the heaviest and most irreversible part of my vascular injury, especially calcification of small brain vessels. How the second life chapter slowed the damage. From 2010 to 2025. In 2010, my doctor told me I already had neuropathy, retinopathy, and chronic kidney disease approaching dialysis. That was the turning point of my life. I stopped everything, including my psychology studies and charitable therapy work, and decided to save my own life using knowledge and discipline. Starting at age 63, I devoted myself full-time to studying medicine. I read more than 10,000 published papers in endocrinology, cardiology, neurology, metabolism, sleep medicine, nutrition, psychology, dementia, and cancers. At the same time, I ran a complete lifestyle experiment on my own body. I took no medications, not even vitamins. Instead, I controlled food portions and quality, lowering carbs and sugar, walking 14,000 steps daily, sleep hours, visceral fat reduction, stress management. Over 10 years, I lost 60 pounds, 27 kilograms, of weight. My average daily glucose dropped from 220 mg/dl to 110 mg/dl, without taking any medication. My health stabilized. I reversed many unhealthy conditions without medication. Almost no one has ever done 2 opposite multi-decade, real-life experiments on the same body. 20 years medication only versus 16 years lifestyle only. This gives me a unique scientific perspective. How 36 years of diabetes weakened my vessels. Long-term high glucose slowly damaged my brain's small vessels in the following ways. 1. Endothelial injury, damage to the thin inner lining. 2. Thickened basement membrane, the foundation layer becomes weaker. 3. Collagen glycation, sugar stiffens tissues and makes vessels fragile. 4. Lipohyalinosis, vessels become thick, narrow, and easy to rupture. 5. Stiff vessel walls, loss of flexibility. 6. Progressive calcification, calcium buildup hardens vessels. 7. Narrowed blood channels, less room for blood to pass. 8. Weak vessel strength, rupture becomes more likely. In the pons region, these tiny vessels behave more like stiff, brittle tubes than flexible biological structures. My VMT stroke energy analysis, the 91% versus 9% rule. Using my VMT viscoplastic energy model, I calculated how much vascular damage accumulated during these 2 life chapters. The first 20 years, from 1990 to 2009, generated about 91% of my total vascular calcification. The next 16 years, from 2010 to 2025, generated about 9%. The lifestyle years slowed the damage dramatically, from 91% to 9%, a 10-to-1 ratio, but the early structural harm was already done. Vascular calcification is almost irreversible. This result came from physics, engineering, dynamic modeling, nonlinear energy summation, topology, and millions of data points I collected myself. Almost no medical researcher has both the long-term data and the multidisciplined research training to perform this type of analysis. The final trigger, an emotional stress spike. On June 21, 2025, emotional stress activated my sympathetic system. My SBP shot up to 175 mmHg. For a healthy vessel, this is dangerous. For a calcified pons vessel, it is fatal. The chronic damage from diabetes was the loaded gun. The 175 mmHg spike was the trigger. Why my understanding is deeper than routine clinical practice. No physician has my 36-year daily data. No physician can run a 91% versus 9% viscoplastic energy model. Doctors treat populations. I analyzed one patient in extreme depth. Myself. Guidelines cannot reconstruct a 40-year metabolic history. My 2-chapter life experiment is unique in medical history. Doctors care about their patients, but nobody cares about me more than I do. That is why I decided in 2010 to save my own life through knowledge, willpower, discipline, and curiosity. Disclaimer: I write this paper not for fame, but to share what I have learned so others can understand their health, prevent disease, and live longer, healthier lives. This content is for educational reference only and is not medical advice. No doctor-patient relationship is created. You may share this summary freely, but it must not be altered or republished as your own. All intellectual property rights belong to the author, Gerald C.